ready to go? Everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, good morning, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us here for this historic announcement. And first and foremost, I want to recognize mayors from all the way up and down the Mississippi River. We have mayors here from large cities. We have mayors here from small cities. And anytime you're in a room with a lot of mayors, I can tell you, speaking from personal experience now over a number of years, we all find out very quickly how much, as different as our cities may be, that we have a whole lot of things in common. And in this particular case, one major thing that we have in common, apart from a lot of the day-to-day things that we deal with, we have the Mississippi River. And that's something that's not just important to us as mayor, but it's important to people and communities that live all the way up and down the river, and it's important to the national economy. We're here to announce for the first time that mayors along the Mississippi River are coming together as one voice to bring more attention to our nation's most important natural resource, or certainly one of the most important natural resources, and that's the Mississippi River. We began this effort in February of this year. Since then, 41 mayors have come aboard the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. There are 124 mayor-led communities along the main stem of the river, and we hope eventually that every one of them will be on board and working with us. Of course, we've had a short time to put this together, and I certainly want to thank the mayors who have been here, who are here today, for their quick involvement and leadership. MRCTI, that's the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative, is housed within the Northeast Midwest Institute in Washington, D.C. for now. Now, that same institute led, along with then Mayor Daley of Chicago, a similar effort about a decade ago for mayors along the Great Lakes of both Canada and the United States sides of those lakes. It was thought that the Mississippi River could benefit by a similar gathering of mayors. The Walton Foundation agreed to provide seed money to begin what will become an independent organization headquartered in some city, which hasn't been determined yet, along the Riverway. Last year's record flooding, coupled with this year's record drought, has further strengthened our resolve that the Mississippi River needs help immediately, and the communities, of course, along the river. Too much of our nation's well-being depends on the river to not act at this point. Let me give you a snapshot of how important the river is to our country. The Mississippi River is part of the largest navigable river system on Earth. The largest navigable river system on Earth. 37 states comprise the Mississippi River Basin. 40% of our nation drains into the main stem of the Mississippi. Over 18 million people obtain their drinking water directly from the channel, including the city of St. Louis. And I want to throw in a little plug for the city. We were voted a few years ago as the best tasting municipal water in America, thanks to the Mississippi River. International trade through U.S. ports supports 20 to 30% of the United States GDP and 13 million jobs. $105 billion of that support and over 1 million jobs depend on the Mississippi River specifically. 200 million tons of petroleum, 100 million tons, 20% of coal, and 22% of the nation's oil and gas, and 60% of American grain output move along the Mississippi River. So it's a huge method of transportation for so much industry and for our economy in the country. River closures cost America $300 million a day in lost economic activity. So we're talking about a big impact and something very important. And it's important that we have a collective voice and work with all the organizations and federal government that are involved and can provide resources for us to address the challenges and to take advantage of the opportunities that the river provides. And we do have representatives from a number of those agencies here with our conference this week. Clearly, these figures paint a picture of such critical ecological and economic importance that, and it shows that there would be a huge risk to the national economy if we were to neglect the Mississippi River. It is because the stakes are so high and impact such a large area that this initiative includes all 2,500 miles of the main stem. To elaborate on this point, I'd like to invite some of my fellow mayors who can describe how the river's importance is widespread and demands attention right now. Please first welcome Mayor David Kleiss of St. Cloud, Minnesota. We'll also hear from Mayor A.C. Wharton of Memphis, and then finally we'll hear from Mayor Copeland as well. And so if we can go ahead and start with that, and again, if any other mayors want to make a comment, they're free to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Slay. It truly is an effort that's from the headwaters to the Gulf. And I have to mention, as the mayor mentioned, as the first mayor where the headwaters is actually a mayor representing the state of Minnesota, the city of St. Cloud. And I have to mention also the fact that Minnesota, we were listed as the best water in Minnesota. I'm glad it keeps its flavor all the way down to St. Louis. Yeah, and as the state that has the headwaters, I want to also to all the other mayors on the Mississippi, you're welcome. The recreational industry, and again, the Mississippi River, truly a tremendous asset, but the recreational industry on the upper Mississippi generates $1.2 billion annually. And this is just on the upper area. Sports fishing on the upper Mississippi brings in $100 million a year. The Mississippi River trails and byways comprise over 575 miles of historic scenic touring. In the northern stem, we have over 600 river recreation sites, and these attribute clearly to the Mississippi River is essential to the quality of life in all of our communities. That's why we're meeting here today, both to spotlight the river's importance as we equip ourselves with the tools necessary to sustain the river individually for our own towns, but more importantly, to collectively as one voice for the whole river itself. Such dependence on the Mississippi is not confined just to the upper area and the middle region, but also, as Mayor Wharton will explain from Memphis, can attest all the way down to the Gulf.
Thank you, Mayor Kleiss. First, let me thank Mayor Slay for convening us, and of course the foundation for helping to underwrite this most needed initiative. I don't know where this best drinking water thing is going. I think we may have all been duped because we were just told we had the best drinking water down in Memphis. So maybe that ought to be our next job. We've got to settle that. We'll have a water tasting event somewhere. We're in. And I don't know what the prize will be, but we're going to have that contest. Again, thanks to my fellow mayors for joining us here, and thanks to all of you for coming out. We often, so much of the folklore about our river, the great Mississippi River, it just kind of just rolls along. I think Winston Churchill said that in your letter, points that out, but and indeed in some places it does just roll along. But in other places, it's rambunctious. I mean, when it gets down to Memphis, it spreads. It just takes over when it wishes. But that's why we have to come together as one voice, because we're not trying to tame the Mississippi. We're trying to adapt to the Mississippi and make the most of it. And it takes different strategies in different places, but we have to speak with one voice. And getting back to its rambunctious and unpredictable nature, if you'll stop to reflect, at least down in Memphis, just over a year ago, in 2011, we had a 25-year flood event. As a matter of fact, they had declared Memphis closed. That was erroneous. We did not close, but it was completely out of its banks. I could not see, I had no idea last year at this time where the river channel was, literally. This time, when I look out my window, I wonder where is the Mississippi River. There's one narrow channel through Memphis there. I've seen jetties I've never seen before. I've seen sand dunes and bars that I've never seen before, did not know they were there. But again, that's the beauty of the Mississippi River. results is on either event, whether it's the flood or whether it's the drought. It results in widespread damage. It ruins livelihoods. It's not merely something to talk about. There are people out of work right now. There are folks who can't go to the ports to work because the barges can't get in. So while it may be beautiful in its grandeur, but it also has a damaging side to it, and it's costly to manage that. In the case of Memphis, our main fuel port, the Valero refinery, is right on the Mississippi, and we have trouble getting the barges in and out. We have to transport fuel in from the east, which adds to the cost of gasoline. But guess what? Just as so many things are changing in our great country, you hear the phrase so many times, the new normal. The new normal is now the abnormal when it comes to the Mississippi. But we're not going to moan over that. We're not going to cry in our milk over there or crying out best drinking water. So we'll use that. But we're going to say we're up to it, just as the river's always been up to it for us. We're going to be up to whatever challenges the river brings. But to manage that, there's some things that we have to do, and the key is why we're here today. We've got to come together as one region with one voice. Back in October of 2011, we were called up to Washington to testify before a Senate committee, and mayors all the way from New Orleans all the way up came in, and we told what had happened along the Missouri rivers and the Mississippi as a result of the flooding. But guess what? They got gridlock up there. So what has happened? Nothing has happened. And this is why we're coming back home and saying if we get together as one voice back home, we can perhaps have an impact that so far we've not seen out of Washington. Not only must we come together, we've got to invest in the infrastructure that's going to be needed to manage not only the ecology of the Mississippi River, but the economy of the Mississippi River as well. You've heard the numbers with respect to the economy, and you know about the ecology of the river. But if you look at revenue, just revenue from the river on the southern stem, $128 billion in revenue, 700,000 jobs are impacted one way or the other by the river. And then again, infrastructure, $84 billion just from manufacturing and infrastructure along the river. What this all boils down to, we didn't come together just to look at each other. We're a pretty good looking group, but there are prettier things I could have seen elsewhere. But we can, like our drinking water in Memphis, I'll let you forget that. But it's an action item that we have to get through. So I know you folks are saying, well, what are you going to do? Let's give you three things we're going to do starting right here. Over here you'll see a pledge. We're going to be signing a pledge, all of us to speak with one voice. We're not merely going to sign that pledge, but we're going to come up with an agenda, a precise agenda, which you'll hear so much more about as we move through this. And then we're going to take that agenda to Washington, D.C. Now, we're going to go up and say, come on, give us billions more dollars. Now, that's not necessarily the focus. There are already devices and machines and policies in place which, if handled and funded properly, would help us meet many of the challenges that we have. Policy changes are what we're going to be looking for. For example, we already have the Inland Waterways Trust Management. Up until 2009, the funds were basically adequate, but now those funds are not adequate to manage our inland waterways. Down in Memphis, we have to wonder from year to year how we're going to dredge our ports. We go hand in hand. Well, that's a critical infrastructure there, and we should not have to wonder if we're going to have the funds to dredge that port there. There's so many other things that we're going to be working on, particularly, and this impacts not only commerce along the river, but our residential sectors and our recreational sectors along the river. The National Flood Insurance Program with a key toward affordability and also helping us get the word out about the existence of that program. So again, this is not merely a get-together and to talk and commiserate, but it is the beginning, it is the foundation, it is the launching of our ability to speak with one voice, to come up with an agenda, go to Washington in the spring of 2013 and seek and demand action on those agenda items. Speaking of someone who really knows the river in its most rambunctious stage, and Mother Nature in all of her rambunctious stages, our next speaker, Mayor Hiram Copeland from Vidalia, Louisiana. Now, from Tennessee, we thought it was Vidalia, but I learned something this morning. It's Vidalia, I believe it is, it's Vidalia as in the Vidalia onion, I guess we'd say it that way. Here's the gentleman, here's the mayor who the past 400 days has known and experienced a flood, a drought, and most recently a hurricane. And yes, he is still surviving. He's still here. I'd like to bring to you the Honorable Hiram Copeland, Mayor of the great city of Vidalia, Louisiana. Mayor Copeland.
Gosh, I don't know what to say after all that. And he took everything I was going to say to each and every one of you. But first of all, we're very proud to be in the beautiful city of St. Louis, Missouri. The mayor, I want to tell you that my wife has left a contribution to your city at one of your casinos. This trip cost me more than I anticipated. But I also want to say this. Everyone's taking credit about the water. I have a plaque in my office that states that Vidalia was selected as having the best water system, a rural community in the state of Louisiana. But I do have a plaque, and I'm going to ask these mayors, do they have their plaque yet? I know they do. But, you know, it's a privilege and honor to be here. And, of course, we're talking about the Mississippi River. It's something that we love and we cherish. And we do have experiences with it. I have been fortunate to be mayor of my community for the last 20-something years, and alderman 12 years before that. So I've been there practically all my life and seen a little bit of everything. We've seen ice storms. We've seen a 500-year record flood. It's something we never experienced before. Of course, in a drought, the worst drought we've had in 70 years. And of course, Hurricane Isaac remnants came over Vidalia a few weeks ago. So we've experienced a little bit of everything. But you know what I've learned in all this is the people that you represent, the various government agencies that work with us through these experiences. I can tell you that it's something that I will never forget as long as I live. We were told at one time that the river was going to be a certain height last year. And every time we talked to the Corps of Engineers, they adjusted that height and finally decided it was going to be a record level of magnitude that we had not experienced before. So how in the world can you prepare for something like that? We started the process of building dirt levees, but we realized they would not have enough time to do that, nor did we think they would hold. Has anyone ever heard of HESCO baskets? Well, okay. If you haven't, please call me. I will give you that information. In a few short days, this HESCO basket, it's about 14 feet long and it's about 4 foot high. And someone told us they had used them in Iraq. They had used them BP with oil spill. And so we immediately called to check on that. And we got those agencies involved in it. And believe it or not, we have a $75 million project in Vidalia, riverfront, hundreds of jobs, and we were expecting to lose all of those. But in 3.5 days, with 4 contractors, we put the HESCO baskets completely around those businesses. And believe it or not, we saved those jobs and those businesses. Let me tell you how it was. It's amazing. CNN, ABC, Fox News all came to Vidalia to look at what we had, and we actually got in a boat. The Mississippi River flow was still coming past those businesses, and there they were setting dry because of the HESCO baskets. It was a miracle of everybody working together. You had to experience it. The drought, how has it affected a small community like us? We have a hydroelectric plant in Vidalia. So far, it was operating at 100% until the drought started. Now it's operating at 20%. It's affected us as much as $4 to $6 million of our revenue stream. That's a lot of money for a small community. And so we've experienced that also. Our farmers are having a hard time getting their products shipped up and down the river because of the river itself. So the river has been a tremendous asset to us through the years. And of course, naturally, it's been detrimental to us, but it's still our best asset in shipping our goods and receiving our goods in our communities. Again, I want to reiterate, small community, everybody working together, you realize what you're made of. If you would go to Medallion today and look at it, if you've seen it last year, there is no way that they could recover for something like that, but we did. We're back where we were. We accepted the drought. The water's going to come back. We know that. But we experienced that. We endured it. We survived, and we're looking forward to working with this group of mayors and up and down the Mississippi River. We all have the same problems. We talk about what we have and what's happened to us and what we're going to do about it. We're learning a lot from each other about the communities and what to do. We're preparing for the future. And I'm excited about this organization. We're going to Washington to sit down with our congressional delegation, discuss it, to try to get more money. Everybody needs money this day and time. So we're going to be there with hat in hand and tell them how important this river is right here to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. And, any other mayors would like to add a comment? You're certainly welcome to do that. And if not, we'll take questions from the media. Anybody have a question? Yes.
It sounds like the flooding last year was sort of the catalyst for putting this effort together. Could you elaborate on sort of who made the first call and what sort of led to the development of this initiative?
Well, Colin is with us, Colin Wellenkamp, who's our executive director, and he and I had talked about this. He was the Walton Family Foundation had made a decision that this was something that they wanted to get on, and once I heard about it, I jumped on board right away. And Colin, if you want to add anything to that? Sure. I think Colin would be more instructive on
how it started was the Northeast Midwest Institute, as Mayor Slay mentioned earlier, had started another organization called the Great Lakes Cities Initiative with Mayor Daley of Chicago about 10 years ago. And the Institute looked at the Mississippi River and saw a lot of the same issues, scales of economy issues and ecological problems that the Great Lakes were suffering from in the past. Thought, well, maybe the mayors would be a force for change for the river the way that they were for the Great Lakes. They approached the Walton Family Foundation about that design, and the foundation completely agreed. We started this in February. I do want to point out that Mayor Slay was actually our founding joinee. He was the first mayor to join, and all these mayors standing behind me joined. They didn't need much convincing. In fact, Mayor Kennemore of Osceola, when we called him, he said, you know what, I just came from a meeting with the Corps of Engineers, and it was suggested at the meeting that mayors should get together for the Mississippi River to do something about our infrastructure issues. He had that meeting 3 days before we called him. So he was not, and Mayor Kleiss from Minnesota, he said, not only do I want to join, I want to help you build it and help you lead it and help you find mayors and go all the way down to Louisiana. And we did. We found Mayor Copeland, so that's how it got started.
And keep in mind that each and every one of us in our communities have been addressing, the challenges and the opportunities that the river brings to our communities independently. And we go to Washington, we talk to our congressional delegation. We have issues, whether it's flooding, whether it's drought, whether it's some kind of ecological issue that we could use some help with. But certainly, as a collective force and as one united voice, we will be much more effective. And I think be more strategic in terms of setting priorities and moving forward to find some common ground and go to Washington. So I think it's going to be a much more effective approach if we do it together.
Mayor, seeing so many mayors together here today certainly manifests a collegial atmosphere, as mentioned there. What is it that you would like for St. Louis to know about this meeting here today of all the mayors?
Well, I think there's a couple things. First and foremost is, I've talked and met all these mayors, and most of them, I couldn't tell you whether they're Republican or they're Democrat, and I don't care, because this is about doing the right thing for our communities, for our environment, and for our economy. And I think what mayors have demonstrated time and again, that we work with whomever we have to, whether it's a Republican or independent or Democratic congressman or someone in the State House that may impact an issue, it isn't about Republican and Democrat and liberal and conservative. It's about getting stuff done in a way that's going to enhance our communities, to improve our quality of life, and to make our communities better places for more people. So, you know, I think that's a message that we can send out time and again. I'm a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and if you saw all the things we as mayors agree upon, believe me, it far exceeds, you know, the things that we disagree upon. And I think that we as a nation and elected officials overall need to be thinking more about, you know, the things we can try to work on together, and the things we disagree on, trying to figure out some common ground so we can, you know, come up with a compromise or come up with something so that we can advance the interests of the people we represent in a very responsible way. So this has to do with the Mississippi River. But the other thing I was going to say is that we are showing and demonstrating, and I think you know, bringing a loud voice to showcasing and exposing and promoting the importance of this outstanding, unbelievable natural resource that runs right through the middle of our nation. Whether it's for sports and entertainment, or whether it's you know, fishing and those kinds of things, other sports, boating, whether it's for you know, just nature, just, you know, going out and viewing the eagles flying around Alton or somewhere else along the river, or whether it's something, you know, where we're getting drinking water. It's also helped as a vehicle for moving commerce up and down, and agricultural products and other things, petroleum up and down the river. But this river has so many attributes that are so important, not just to us, but to the entire nation and our economy, that we're coming together to address those things in a more effective way.
Yeah. To that point too, one of the things, you know, Mississippi River, all of us have different challenges in our area. So as a former legislator, a state legislator, I know when somebody came to the community for an issue, you know, if that wasn't necessarily somebody from your community, they came in, you listened to them. But here we're representing an organization from different communities, so not only is that one voice, but we can also encourage our members of Congress and to also, that may not be an issue for our area, but it's an issue farther down the river. That the only thing I think we have in common is our water really tastes really good all the way down. I think that's the only thing that we have, but there are issues and challenges, and you know, again, we learn the best practices, and that's one of the things, but I think that strength in that voice, but also in being able to advocate for one of our fellow communities down the river, I think is an important piece of that too, because without that, it's just one voice. Together, we're a very strong voice.
Okay. Take one more question, and then we'll move on. Yes.
We know that this report that's in the process of being made in Son J. Are there any other mayors that are going to have businesses up and down the Mississippi River as far as having a report made, or, you know, anything happen like that?
Well, each one of these can address that. I mean, we're doing some port improvements over here, and we're partnering with. We work with the East Side. We've got Mayor Parks. Did you want to say something, Mayor, from the East St. Louis? He may want to join in.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mayor Slay. And yes, I do represent East St. Louis, Illinois. The port activity that we look forward to is a tremendous economic engine, and that's what Mayor Slay and the other mayors have spoken here to that point. This is not just about the ecology, although that's first, and we look at that first and foremost when we talk about public health and public safety issues. It's also about economy. One of the major benefits to the mighty Mississippi is the ability to transport goods and services up and down the river to the Great Lakes, out to the Gulf of Mexico, and around the world. And we recognize this as a tremendous asset. Mayor, while I have the mic, I do want to mention one other point. Over in southwestern Illinois, and I know that the Mayor of Alton is here as well, one of the challenges that we're facing right now is the ability to make sure that our people are protected below the hill, below Highway 157. For those who are not from the area, you may not know what that means, but it's basically below the bluffs. One of the challenges that we recognize, especially coming out of Hurricane Katrina, is that our infrastructure must be foolproof. We've got to make sure that we have that situation where it's at least 100-year flood proof, and preferably moving toward 500-year flood proof. We've been working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers along with FEMA to make sure that that entire system is properly protected. So it's not just about economy, but it's about the basic health and safety of the community, to make sure that no one has to be washed out of their homes and no one has to be possibly forced into mandatory national flood insurance. That's another major component of why we're all here today, the public health and public safety. We protect it as mayors. We do everything we can with our police and fire departments, but it's also that very basic thing called infrastructure.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. One thing I'd like to do before we go over and we sign the pledge, the mayor's pledge, is if we could just have every mayor just introduce themselves, the name and what city you represent. We start
I'm
here.
Tom Thompson, and I'm the mayor of Grafton, Illinois.
Hiram Copeland, Mayor of Vidalia, Louisiana.
I'm Mayor Dickie Kennemore, and I'm from Osceola, Arkansas. And yes, we have a port also, not as big, but ports are very important to us too.
AC Ward from Memphis, Tennessee. We're not doing that much to the port, but we brought steamboats back for the first time. They couldn't get to Vicksburg because of river low, so we got to take care of that. There's a lot going on the river.
Mark Bullich, Mayor of Clinton, Iowa.
Larry Stebbins, Mayor of Savannah, Illinois. We do not get our drinking water from the Mississippi. We have deep wells. We do have a sewer treatment plant right in the Mississippi that you are concerned with.
Yes.
Especially those of you that get your water from.
Dick Reminger from St. Genevieve, Missouri, and we're building the port right now.
Joanne Smiley, Clarksville, Missouri.
Mayor Paul Winfield, Vicksburg, Mississippi. We're in the process of doing some port improvements. We have the 11th busiest port in terms of tonnage in the country, in terms of engine ports.
Mayor Dennis Egan from Redmond, Minnesota, and one of the other aspects that we have, 2 bulkheads moving grain, but also the big fishery that we have, and we have a nuclear power plant that sits on the Mississippi River. So there's many concerns on that as well.
Dave Place, Mayor of St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Joe Egmar, Mayor of Chester, Illinois.
Bill Glue, Mayor of the city of Davenport, Iowa.
Roy Buell, the Mayor of Dubuque, Iowa.
Alvin Parks, Mayor of East St. Louis, Illinois, and the home of 2012 silver medalist, Dawn Harper. So we have great water that supports tremendous athletes.
I'm Tom Hanks, Mayor of Alton, Illinois.
Okay, at this time I'm going to ask the mayors to sign the mayor's pledge, and the way we're going to do it is I'm going to ask you to sign. There's kind of a graphic of the Mississippi River from the north all the way to the south. And I just ask you to, as close as possible, sign near the location of your city. And if there is a news media here that wants to get a specific picture of his or her mayor, we can arrange for that as well, signing this thing. So I'll start where St. Louis is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's right.